Good evening, everybody. Um, well, tonight I'm going to talk a little bit about the Route 40 Romp. Um, I did a race report and typed it all up, um, but I know not everybody is really into reading a lot of stuff, and I found it kind of cathartic and um, it reveals some new things whenever I talk about it and just have a have a glass of wine and just start blabbing away. Um, Going into this race, I I had previously done a 100-mile ultramarathon. Let's see, it was the end of March, and my 100-mile ultra was in the beginning of December. So it was a few months between the two races, and I took a few weeks off after that 100-miler to just kind of relax and take a break because training for one of these races is an everyday thing. And I've been going about year round to do it. Um, so really, I only prepared for it like 2 months, but I had a really good base because of my previous 100-miler, and I learned a lot of things from that first race, that first 100-miler. Um, if you see me looking over, I'm just checking my notes, checking up my typed up race report to kind of help me move along. One of the one of the tangible things I learned from that race is what I'm actually gonna eat and drink and all the nutrition and hydration that I'll actually take in along the race. So it was a lot easier to plan with a cooler and a duffel bag. And I also learned some food mistakes from that 100-miler. I I ate a lot just in general from the very start, and a lot of it was bread. And I think I did some research on it after the race, and I forgot the main term for it, but it's like a high stress endurance triggered IBS. So it really gave me a lot of stomach issues. So what I did this time is I really stripped it down. My nutrition for the race was peanuts. I had this little trail mix of peanuts and cranberries, really simple. I made a bunch of these little saltine peanut butter cracker sandwiches, and they were great. Um, the kind of sweet, kind of salty um, mix was really good, and it broke away from the sweetness from the Gatorade. I still use the Gatorade Endurance. That stuff's pretty great. Um, if you're not familiar with Gatorade Endurance, it's like Gatorade, but double or triple the electrolytes and about half of the sugar, so it's not as sweet, it's not as hard on your palate. So those little peanut butter sandwiches were good, and I ate a lot of bananas and apples. So it was a really natural, um, high nutrient dense diet. Um, and before it was kind of a more caloric dense. So it ended up paying off. I did have a really good race as far as stomach issues go, but I ended up still going to the bathroom a lot, um, just because I'm taking in so much food. Like there's so much mass, like it goes through your body. You're not going to burn up the complete mass of the food. So I was still going to the bathroom a lot, which is really frustrating. So now I'm thinking I might need to start incorporating my energy gels back into my long routine. Um, what I typically like as far as energy gels go There's a company called Science and Sport, SIS. They make these energy gels that are high electrolyte. Plus, they add like 1 or 2 ounces of water, so it's more like drinking the energy gel than squeezing like a packet of jelly into your mouth. So it's a lot easier to take in, a lot easier, a lot better mouthfeel. You hear that term a lot whenever you're starting to research energy gels, that kind of thing. Mouthfeel is important because over so many hours it can really wear you down if you're taking in like really strong flavors or the same flavors over and over and over. It really wears you down. So I think I'm going to start introducing more energy gels because it's more calories, more nutrients, in a more stripped down, smaller mass of food. Um, I'll get to your question. I saw that. Um, Also, if you're watching right now and you want to fire away any questions, I'll answer them. I'll start by kind of recapping the race, and then I'll do questions and stuff, just to kind of help me stay on track, because I need that. If you're having a drink, cheers. Cheers to finishing big races. I'm having myself a nice Malbec tonight. If you're drinking something, I hope you enjoy it too. So, other lessons learned going into this race is cheers, one, is emotional and mental preparedness. Going into that first 100 miler, I had only done a 50-mile ultramarathon before that, and before that just some 50Ks, 31-mile trail races. So all in all, this was my second big ultramarathon. So that's one of the things I keep thinking about whenever I get down on myself. Not really down on myself, but frustrated or disappointed, is that I'm still learning kind of on the fly. And it's a steep learning curve. 100 and 100 plus mile races, it's a pretty steep learning curve. So back to what I was saying, the mental and emotional preparedness was really big, because if you read or watched my recap for that race, around mile 80, mile 75 or 80, somewhere in there, it was just before dawn of the second day. I had been running in the dark, the cold, nobody's out, there's no visual stimulation, there's nothing out there, just you and darkness. And I hit a really bad emotional wall where I started seriously doubting, not just doubting, I knew it in my mind that I wasn't going to finish. And it was along this little stretch of A1A where there wasn't a whole lot of buildings, but there was this one little cafe and it had outside seating. And I got to the point where I was so defeated that I sat down on one of the outside benches and put my head down and started to let myself go to sleep, because nobody will blame me if I fell asleep, just taking a break and I didn't have to finish. And, a lot of things start going through your head whenever you're out for that long. And doubt can really set in. But I ended up making it through that race and having a really good spiritual experience from it. And I took that with me into this race, and it helped a lot because it was a little worse this time, around the same yeah, I was so tired. Around that same point in the race, this time it wasn't on A1A with the beach right there and the ocean and a full moon and maybe some buildings. It was in the middle of Ocala National Forest. I don't even know if there was a moon out. It wasn't full, and if there was anything out, it was covered up by the clouds. So, National Forest, pitch black, so quiet. No, no ocean making noise or anything. It was just me and this. I have my little lamp on my head, and the only thing I could see was this spot of light in front of me. And it was recipe for another really bad experience. But having the previous experience under my belt, I did a good job of not letting it wear me down and bring me down. It was still really tough. But I stuck with it. I paced myself. I took little naps towards the end and finally broke into my emergency stash of Coca-Cola and chocolate bars to give me a little bit of caffeine and a little treat just to bring up my spirits. But I made it through the night pretty well, and aside from being tired, it was a lot better experience than I had in Daytona. So I'm kind of getting ahead of myself in the race report. So I'll just touch on a few things, and then I'll answer some questions. This race is called the Route 40 Romp because it's Highway 40 almost the entire time, and Highway 40 goes from coast to coast. So it doesn't go completely connected. It splits apart, and in that little stretch is Highway 41 in Denellen. Sorry, there's a puppy. Anyway, puppy count for the race report is 1. Rocky. Okay, so back to the race report. So anyway, the course is Route 40 from Yankeetown boat ramp, the literal boat ramp, to Ormond Beach, where Route 40 goes right onto the beach. If you take Route 40 over A1A, it just goes right down to a guard shack and you can drive on the beach. So aside from that little jog, that's why it's called the Route 40 Romp, because it's Route 40 the whole way. Excuse me. And the course instructions were pretty fun. The starting line... Wait, come here. Come here. Ugh. Okay, Rocky says hi. He's antsy. So the starting line was at the boat ramp, and the directions were that we all took off a shoe and our sock if you were wearing a sock, and you touch the water of the Gulf of Mexico. Hi. Thank you. And that was the start line. And whenever the race director was about to tell us to go, he said, all right, the course directions are pretty simple. Go that way until you hit the ocean. And then we were off. There were a couple little twists and turns, but that was kind of fun. Good boy. So that was the start line, and there were... Let's see. Sorry. Technical difficulties. There were 13 people total that signed up for the race. So not a big race. And only 7 people, including me, showed up. So my first thought was automatic top 10. Cheers to automatic top 10s. And then we were off. And it was kind of dark, kind of cold. But it warmed up pretty quick after that. I had a pretty good race. Let's see, I had a 6 mile check in. Not really a whole lot before then, and then 15 miles at my check in. I'm pretty structured and strict with my pacing and my strategy for the race. And by mile 15, I was consistently 10 minutes ahead of schedule. And that early in the race, you can't really gauge anything by that, but it was good to be ahead of schedule, but not too far ahead, so I know I wasn't going overboard. So it's just a nice little treat at that point. And by that time, I started stretching every few stops. And Angie, my massage therapist, she's watching right now. I'm saying it to make her happy. I did a really good job of stretching, and it did pay off. I had a really good experience physically in this race, unlike last time. Last time, I'd never had to go that long, so I wasn't aware of how important it was to stretch regularly, and my legs locked up by the end of it. I was in pretty rough shape after the race. I still was after this one, but we'll get to that. But during the race, I stayed pretty limber. Um, 30 miles. 30 miles, I learned a lesson about new running shoes. I got a new pair of Hokas, and I'd run in them a few times up until and yay for happy muscles, exactly. I had run like a few short, by my standards, short runs, 20 25 mile runs in my new Hokas, and didn't have any problems. But by mile 30 on this race, I realized that when I laced them up, I use elastic laces and then they're fixed. Otherwise, it takes a long time to readjust them. I had laced them up a little tighter than my last shoes. So, what it was doing was taking room out of the toe box and pushing my foot back in the heel. And I could feel blisters start to happen. And I've never had blisters on my feet before. I've always had pretty loose fitting shoes. And I knew that was bad news bears at mile 30. So at mile 30, I learned my lesson, and I was happy that past Mitch was thinking about future Mitch and brought his backup Hokas that were pretty loose. So I got my cushiony socks on and my loose fitting Hokas, and I was good to go from there for a long time. And then about mile 50, I made my way into Ocala. I learned another hard lesson. In my 50 miler, my Garmin lasted the whole race. I didn't have to recharge it. In my 100 miler, I remember it lasting about 12 hours, so I wasn't too worried. But me being as smart as I am, I forgot to charge it up the night before. So I was already down a few notches on the battery life. And by the time I got into Ocala, I still had about 10 miles to go. And my watch told me I had 20% left. So there was a little bit of mad rush. And thank you, Charity, for being my savior for that, and just completely crushing being road crew. She was like my road crew captain, I would say, for this race. She's not watching right now, but whenever you do get around to it, thank you, Charity. So anyway, I managed to not lose charge on my Garmin, because if I lost charge, then it would stop tracking, and then the whole thing wouldn't count, and I'd have to start all over again. Mile 50, I might have spent. Yeah, she did awesome. At mile 50, I probably spent a little too much time, but it was worth it because I got to experience the Shuggy Shack. Um, if you're pretty new to this, my race reports, the Shuggy Shack is um, a big 1976. Olivia's watching right now. Airstream trailer, camper trailer, and my sponsor Olivia Ortiz, she provides me with all my chafing balm and just 74. That's what I said. 1974. Um, she provides me with my chafing balm and lots of products that make me feel pretty and help me recover after. Um, so, and her company is called the Shuggy Company. Oh, crap. Okay, her company is called the Shuggy Company, Shuggy Natural Products. And she bought and renovated that Avion Legrand camper and called it the Shuggy Shack. She's using it for her business too, so that's pretty cool. But she also offered it up to be my road crew vehicle. So yes, hashtag Shuggy Company. See Olivia for all your natural beauty needs. Sponsored. Um, so yeah, my 50-mile stop, I got to take a shower. It was cold, but it was a shower. Um, there was beds, and Angie, my massage therapist, her practice is all bodies massage, and I highly recommend that you go see her. Um, Shouting out to all my sponsors. Angie took care of me and gave me like a quick sports massage, helped me stretch out a little bit, shook out all my muscles. She gave me a little confidence boost. She said that I was doing a good job with my stretching, and it didn't feel like I had gone 50 miles already. So it was a really big help. Hashtag all bodies massage for all your massage needs. Sponsored. Um, so it was a really good stop. I got to warm up a little bit. I got to have some of my chicken broth, the idea that I stole from Iron Man. Whenever it's cold outside and you're in a long race, after drinking lots of cold water, cold sweet Gatorade, if you can find a way to get some warm chicken broth, it's it warms you as soon as it hits. It's kind of salty. It just gives you a whole different mindset. Just kind of a nice feel like you're back at home in a blanket kind of feeling. So that was good, and I had that a few other times along the race. So definitely, it was a long stop, but it was worth it. It was rejuvenating. It was really good, and Olivia and Angie, I really appreciate it. So thank you very much. That was a big help. I would say that it was a big help at the halfway point, but I wasn't even halfway yet because it's 116 miles. So from there, I went through the forest, and for a 30-mile stretch, I didn't do any check-ins because, like I said before, it was that time where I knew I was going to have a hard time. So I was just trying to stay really focused, and after two ultra marathons that go through the night, I'm learning that the nighttime is a different animal for racing. It's maybe it's a combination of the lack of visual and audio stimulation. Trying to think of a term for it, like sensory deprivation. Like there's not a lot going on, but this white little white dot on the road from my lamp, and nothing really else going on. So I kind of get tunnel vision. So I might do a little bit of research and figure out what can help me through that, because that's pretty tough. And no matter how structured I'd make my like strategy, my pacing plan, it always slows down at night, and I really need to get a hold of that and dial that in and figure out how to make it through the night, maybe a little quicker, or be able to compensate for it in the daytime before then. Because even afterwards, when the sun comes back up, it's super tough to speed back up. It's energizing again when the sun comes up and everything gets warm and things start happening, but to really get that locomotive going back up to speed, that's a pretty big task. So I'm gonna kind of work on that. Maybe I'll do some night runs, figure out where I can run safely, because you can't really run in the trails because they all shut down at nighttime. So maybe I'll do like try to find some nighttime runs to help me with that. But once I made it through the night, I did take a few naps. Longest one I think was 20 minutes, but they were usually like 10 or 15 minutes. And then I would wake up, and then I would have to wake up my road crew because they were sleeping on me and being lazy. But yeah, maybe people running at night would help. That's a good idea. So yeah, I joked that I wasn't very sympathetic of my road crew, which was Olivia and Tony, because they were sleeping whenever I would they were sleeping whenever I would run up to the vehicle, and I scared the crap out of Liv at one of the stops because I knocked on the window and she was asleep, and then I would wake him up and get him ready to go, and I teased him after one stop, told him to try and keep up. But I did make it through the night, and it was good. But it was tough. There's one thing about these races, no matter how much you can prepare and train and work through different obstacles, the overreaching concept is that it is just hard. There's nothing that you can say about these races that can encapsulate it and describe it more than that. It is just a hard race. 100 miles there's no way around it. You're gonna hit a wall. Physical, mental, emotional, they're all gonna happen. It is just extremely difficult, and I guess that's why not a lot of people do it, because you're asking for a lot of trouble, you're asking for a lot of pain and struggle and just all these obstacles you got to push through. It's just incredibly hard, and that's just a lesson that I'm learning, and I'll still do my best to prepare and strategize, but it's just a tough thing to do, and I'm proud of myself for doing it, and I just want to get better at it. I want to be able to get through the night without slowing down. And I'm sure once I get to that point, something else is going to come up. I'm going to get even more exhausted from running through the night. Who knows? but I'm excited to, learn from it and try different things and keep riding this learning curve. Um, One thing I did pick up on this race is those trekking poles, and that is a lifesaver. Those trekking poles were awesome. One thing that's really tough to do when you're running that long, you think about all the things that your legs go through, but your arms and your hands, I do this thing that I read about. It's called, and it's not just because I'm a Transformers fan, but Optimus Prime arms, where you conserve energy and you just keep your arms tucked in and your fists up to conserve energy, because any kind of swinging or bouncing or anything you do is wasted energy, totally wasted. You got to be efficient. So that really bears down on your shoulders after a while, and your forearms, and I would have to raise my hands up. Tony was probably wondering what this crazy guy was doing, because I was doing this, and people driving down the road probably thought I was some kind of suspect, and Tony was apprehending me because he was running behind me and he had his first responder reflective gear on, and I was just in front of him running like this with my hands up. But I was getting the blood out of my hands back down into my body through my heart, because after a while your hands just get really swollen and blood has a hard time getting back up your arms, and it starts collecting and it's uncomfortable and all that good stuff. So the trekking poles, they not only took some pressure off of my feet and my legs and my lower back, because I had that little bit of extra support, but they helped me keep my arms moving and my muscles going and kept my circulation going. Yeah, Liv said I was the world's worst criminal. It was the slowest getaway chase ever. Okay. So here's where we got to my wall on this race, 100 miles. Because there were only 7 of us, the race director was in close contact. I'm pretty sure he was with the 6 people in front of me. It was a sloth getaway, exactly. I am a sloth. I'll get there eventually. But at 100 miles, what I was saying, the race director, the 6 people in front of me, they all finished within like 20, between 23, holy crap, and 29 hours. So he was driving back and forth in his truck, checking on everybody. But I was so far behind, he kept in close contact with me. We were texting the whole time. And I was at mile 97, and he finally said, well, I'm at the 100-mile point, and you're back there, so I'm doing some quick math about when you're going to finish, so I'm coming to see you. And whenever a race director tells you that he's doing math on when you're going to finish and he's going to come back and see you to talk to you, that's not a good feeling. That's like, my stomach's turning right now thinking of it. It's a really sinking feeling in the pit of your stomach. There was he called it a loose cap on the race of 32 hours. I was hoping to do it in 29, but the nighttime pace really set me back. So I tried to tell him, the sun came up, I'm not in the nighttime running anymore, I'm speeding up, but that didn't really make him feel any better. By the way, the soft cap was, he's setting it at 32 hours, and if somebody's close-ish to that, he'll stick around and wait for you for an official finish, which is him witnessing your time. So anyway, he said he was going to come back to see me, and it was raining, like misting and raining all morning. So I was soaked, feet were trashed, um, clothes were soaked, I was cold, not feeling the best, but I was still going. But he still wanted to come see me, so he came back and pulled off on the side of the road. Said, I'm doing some quick math on your finish, and it's going to take you like 10 more hours to finish. And me being math guy, engineer math guy, I know that his quick math is based on my overall pace. He's taking my average pace and extrapolating it, big word, humble brag. He's extrapolating it to this long finish, but me, I'm taking this point and I know I'm going to be a little bit quicker, so I'm going to get there earlier than that, so he's kind of overreacting. But anyway, he said, I'm going to have to call your official finish, and you're not going to get an official finish. It's going to be unofficial. And he asked me, he says, what do you want to do? I said, well, I'm here to run 116 miles. I didn't come all this way. I didn't come 100 miles not to finish the last 16. And, that's what I wanted to do. That's my goal. I had a plan for the time, but I wasn't stuck to that. The time wasn't important to me. What was important was accomplishing the goal. It was pushing through no matter what and going the complete distance. I don't stop. I don't give up. It was kind of different than the 100-mile ultramarathon because there was a strict cap on it, and I knew I wasn't going to hit it. Well, I didn't think I was going to hit it, but I knew there was still time on the clock, and I needed to keep moving. So as long as I kept moving and there was time on the clock, screw it. Let's see what happens. So this one was a little different. Having someone tell you that you're not going to get that official finish, and from there on, my incentive wasn't going to be to do this ultramarathon with an official finish. I'm trying to find the right words for it, but from then on, I had no incentive. I didn't think I was going to get the belt buckle, but I did. I'll get back to that. I didn't have that finish that I was looking for, where the race director was going to watch me, take my shoe off, take my sock off, put my foot in the water. He was going to check his time, write it down, and there's, Mitch Miller, number 7 of 7. There's our last finisher. He wasn't going to be there. There wasn't going to be any kind of fanfare. There wasn't anyway, but there wasn't going to be, somebody there to record my time. It was just going to be me for these last 16 miles after already running for 100. There's no incentive other than me just finishing what I wanted to finish. I was out of the race at that time. At that time, I was pretty worn down, and I overreacted a little bit. He said I wasn't going to get an official finish, so me being anxiety guy, I was thinking, I'm not going to get this belt buckle. All I wanted was this tangible thing in my hand that said I did this race and I completed it, so I'm not going to get my belt buckle. I'm not going to have an official finish. He's not going to post my results, on the website with everybody else. My name's not going to be there in the records, and all this stuff really started wearing down on me. So that was my emotional wall. I was on the side of Highway 40. It was raining. I was there all by myself, and there was traffic going by. They were probably wondering why there was this guy there crumbling down. Like, it took me about 5 minutes to actually sit down, even with gravity helping, because by that time my right calf was swollen about that big. Felt like the size of a watermelon, and it was swollen, so it was pulling on my hamstring pretty bad. So I figured I tore something. I was really sore. I was just down in the dumps on myself. So I sat down, did a little video check-in, and I was pretty down on myself at the time. I knew I wanted to finish, and I had faith in myself that I was going to finish, but I was really upset, that I didn't get that, on paper finish that I wanted. So I sat down for a minute, let myself be a sad sack Sally for a couple minutes, and then I stretched back out. Took about 5 minutes to stand back up again, grab my trekking poles, and I was right around the corner from Liv and Tony in the Shuggy Shack. So I was going around the corner to check in with them, and a really bright spot that I wasn't expecting. My little angel that showed up out of nowhere. I've never met Rebecca in real life, just on Facebook through this group that I have. She was there. Forgive me if I'm wrong. I don't think Rebecca was running the race, but she was there supporting someone. She had been keeping track of me and keeping tabs on me, and she knew where I was. She drove back with her kids, and out of nowhere, this stranger that I'd never met face to face with her kids started running up to me right after the race director took off and crushed my dreams. Showed up with the most amazing grilled cheese sandwich I have ever had in my entire life. You might say it was because of the situation, and maybe it was, but it was the greasiest, crunchiest, gooeyest, best, warmest grilled cheese sandwich at the time when I needed a grilled cheese sandwich the most. It was the most amazing thing. So, Rebecca, when you do watch this, thank you so much. I love you. I love you with all of my heart. Cheers to grilled cheese sandwiches. So that was my low point and bounce back for the 100 miles. And from then on, it was the last 16. I had a few miles to get into Ormond Beach. I met up at another aid stop with Liv and Tony. Just getting into Ormond Beach. Liv took a hairdryer and she dried off my shoes because my feet were disgusting by that time. I've never had blisters in my life on my feet, and I not only had blisters on my heels, I started feeling them up at my toes. And if you've never been running and felt, I don't know if this is the right word, but it feels right. If you've ever felt blisters blossoming on your feet, and then after a while rupturing, and use your imagination, you make your own words for it. If you've ever felt that, you know it feels disgusting and horrible. So it was nice to get some dry socks. Liv said I made Gollum look like a supermodel. Deadpool skin. Yes, keep them coming. My feet look like Deadpool. Um, so I cleaned up my feet a little bit, got some dry shoes on, and the last 16 miles were pretty tough because of my calf, my leg. I couldn't really jog a whole lot. I could jog a little bit with my trekking poles, but a lot of it was just power walking. I had like a 17 to 18 minute mile power walking pace that I tried to keep up. And then with 3 miles to go, I was supposed to run the last 5K with Tony and a new friend that I made, Eric, that was there for the last few stops. It was supposed to be us running the last 5K. I don't know, maybe we were going to look like we were in slow motion on Baywatch and it was going to be inspiring. Three handsome guys, well, two handsome guys and me, and Liv running towards the beach. But it wasn't like that. I was in pretty bad shape. I was really rough. Tony and Eric took off. They had what I would assume is a pretty cool 5K, ending at the beach, and me and Liv kind of hung back. And Liv really, she was my fairy godmother. Yeah, she was my fairy godmother for the last 3 miles, and especially for the last mile. I don't know what it was, but that last mile, we got to this little intersection, and I needed to take a seat. I couldn't make it. I couldn't make it that last mile under the power that I had. So there was this little intersection in this like stone castle entryway kind of thing, and I sat down, and Liv was kind of keeping an eye on me, and sort of like he knew exactly what was going on. The race director texted me and asked how I was doing, because at this time the sun set. The 100-mile race that I did in December was the first time I had ever run a race that had 2 sunrises. I started at sunrise, went through the night, got through another sunrise, and I finished around lunchtime. But this time, we started it just before sunrise, went all day, all night, went through another sunrise, and the last 20 miles of the race took so long that the sun set and I was back in night running mode, and I was having a hard time again. I ate one like good comfort food meal. I had some Publix potato wedges and Publix fried jumbo shrimp. And even if you're not in a race, if you eat that, you will feel like a superhero. It is the most amazing meal. But I had that, and between then and the end of that last mile, I was so exhausted that I was getting that exhaustion nausea. And what I was saying before, it was nighttime again, so the race director, like he somehow knew exactly where I was, texted me, said, "Mitch, are you okay out there?" And shout out to Rich. This was his last year as the race director. He was amazing. he cares so much about everybody that's in the race. He was always making sure I had a road crew, making sure I was good, making sure they were still with me and taking care of me. Um, I'm I'm sad that this was my first experience with this race as it was his last, because I would love to run another one of his races. But anyway, he texted me to make sure I was good, and I told him 1 mile to go, still in it, almost there. And he gave me all sorts of encouragement, told me it was inspiring, told me he was impressed by my dedication. And whenever we met face to face at just before mile 100, he told me he was really proud of me, that I was going to stick to it and finish the race. And that meant a lot to me, because this guy's seen some pretty epic people come through. And I'm sorry. This guy's seen some pretty epic people come through and do his races. And to hear a guy that's seen that much tell me he was proud of me, and that he admired how dedicated I was, and that he was proud of my determination, it meant a lot to me. And then in that last mile, whenever he checked in and told me he was proud of me again, um, it meant a lot. So that is where the last mile started. And Liv can tell you, if you ever talk to her, I was staggering pretty bad. We were right about to go over that bridge. I don't know what it's called, and I don't know what the waterway is, but it's that little canal before you get to A1A. We were going over that bridge, and I was kind of stumbling and staggering over that bridge, and Liv was telling me she was gonna have to, hold me up and keep me upright. I don't know if that would be a finish, now that I think about it, because that wasn't my own power. So I'm kind of glad you didn't grab me, Liv, because then it wouldn't have counted. I'd have had to do the whole thing over again. So we were going over the bridge, and I was so exhausted and so nauseous. Liv, bless her heart, I love you, Liv, so much. She was on a Zoom call with a couple other friends, Lauren and Charity and Autumn, people that had helped me for the first 50 miles, and they've kind of been with me through this journey leading up to this race and through it. She was on a Zoom call with them, and they started talking about food. Fuck. They started talking about food, and I was so nauseous, I turned around and told Liv, stop talking about food, because I was going to throw up. Right there, I was already trying as hard as I could not to stumble into the road from the sidewalk. I was dizzy. I couldn't. Liv said all she talks about is food on the Appalachian Trail. It's what gets her through. I'm the same way. I'm a foodie. I love food so much. But by that time, my body had shut down. I'm convinced my body had completely shut down. My brain was, like in my race report, my brain was scrambled eggs. I couldn't focus on anything. I couldn't look side to side. Like, I tried to keep my eyes open and kind of stay aware by looking at buildings, and there was some people in a restaurant waving, but I kind of looked in the corner of my eye and went back to straight forward so I didn't throw up. So that's how that last mile was. And Tony and Eric were already there. I think they had a couple of beers waiting for me. while they were waiting for me, but they also had a couple beers waiting for me, and I couldn't even look at them in the eyes. They were, yeah, yeah. I remember the people at the bar. Live. That was. I'm gonna cry again. But I got to the beach and I could hear it and I could see that stoplight. There was this one stoplight at A1A that I was focused on for the last quarter mile, and then I could hear the water, and then things really started to get real. And by that time I was really stumbling, and God bless Tony and Eric. I think they were a little buzzed because it took me so long to meet them at the end of that 5K. I'm sure, I don't even remember what they wanted to say or what they said, but I'm sure they wanted me to have a beer. But I couldn't concentrate on anything but kind of stumbling to the water, and made it past the guard shack, and it was finally on the sand. And just like that last 20 yards was like the longest longest 20 yards of my life. I mean, that water was right there, but I had to make it all the way. So I'm pretty sure I just started throwing stuff on the sand as soon as I hit the sand. Like, I saw the picture of me. I didn't have my trekking poles in my hand, so I'm pretty sure I threw those down. I'm pretty sure I took off my waist pack and threw it down, and my hoodie, and like threw everything down. And I had to give an official finish. Oh, apparently Tony and Eric didn't have beers. They were just that excited to see us there. Um, well, cheers to them. They're just happy without beers. That's awesome. That sounded really bad. Um, so I finally got to the water, and I wasn't going to put my foot in the water because my feet were in such bad shape. I had a feeling that salt water was going to feel like fire. So what I wanted to do was put my hand in the water and, um, show the time on my watch. Funny enough, let me get that in. That's about the time it was whenever I finished. How about that? So it was this Herculean feat to take a picture with my hand in the water and my watch and not throw up and fall over. But I ended up taking this shitty picture, not even like with my whole hand. It was a crappy picture. It's just my watch, and you can kind of see my hand in the water. And I sent it to the race director, and I ended up, as soon as that happened, I texted him. I didn't even check in with everybody. So I know my mom was probably freaking out. A bunch of my friends that weren't on the Zoom call, they were asking, did he finish? Did he finish? And I saw all of that the next day. So sorry, Mom. Sorry, everybody. But after I took that picture, I just threw my hoodie down on the sand and just laid down face first and ugly cried. And that is like I think that's like my signature move now. Tony and Eric were wondering what the F I was doing. They can F off. I was doing my thing. I guess that's like my signature move now, is ugly crying at the end of an ultramarathon. Because I did that at the end of the 100-miler. I sat down in a chair and started crying into my face. And then this one, I didn't even care if I was in the water. I didn't care if I drowned if the water came up. I wasn't moving. They were in a cool sitting on coolers right next to me, And it was one of those like really good ugly cries where, like, if you've ever had an ugly cry where you can't catch your breath because you're crying so hard, that was me. Um, Next time somebody needs to take a video of it because I'm sure it's hilarious. But I was there. I'm sure it was a wonderful sight. I think there was some strangers that walked by. I was there just convulsing, ugly crying. They're sitting in coolers right over me, like cheersing their beers right over me, drinking beers over this guy that's a puddle of goo. And some strangers were walking by. Liv said, I'm also pretty sure when you were face down on the beach, there were some people walking by giving us concerned looks like we were guarding your dead body or something. Well, I was dead, so technically they were right. Um, but after that, I kind of collected myself a little bit, got a little bit of help standing up and driving to the Shuggy Shack. Um, I took I took a shower at the campground, and it took me about 5 or 10 minutes just to get undressed to get in the shower. Um, and I don't even remember how I washed my feet. I think I kind of kicked my foot up and caught it, and then washed it because by then my my calf was huge. My calf was huge. Usually, not to brag, but my shins are kind of vascular whenever they're normal size and I'm running and blood's pumping. You can kind of see a little bit of veinage, but like I couldn't even squeeze the skin on my calf. It was so swollen. And it's 2 weeks later now, and it's finally where everything's normal again, just a little bit of soreness. So anyway, I took a shower and then I slept in the Shuggy Shack, and it was the hardest I've ever slept in my entire life. And then came back home. So that's my experience for the race. Um, Getting back to the buckle, I texted Rich with my time, and I let me look it up. I don't want to. I love the way he said it. I'm gonna try not to cry again whenever I read it. I sent him my time, and he said, "Wow." Um, he said, "Congratulations. You're the most determined finisher I've ever seen." And I told him, "Thank you so much for everything." And he said, "I'm inspiring." So, um, so he sent that, and I don't know if he was planning on it or not, but he ended up taking my unofficial race results and posting it with everybody else's. So on the record books, I finished with everybody else. Um, and they don't ask how, they ask how many. So here's the buckle. I'm really having trouble with this mirrored image thing. It's made out of wood, and the lady that makes it just did an awesome job with it. The details are insane. Like in there, it's like this little landscape, and there's birds flying, and it's like set in, so there's a lot of layers to it. So it's really pretty. And it shows Route 40. There's that tiny little jog in Denellen. But that's the buckle. That's why I ran 116 miles and nearly killed myself, just for this piece of wood. um, that I had to pay for. I didn't even get it as a finishing award because the company that does the race is called Old School Ultras, and their shtick is that it's an old school ultra. There's no fanfare. There's no aid stops. There's no free T-shirts. There's no, nothing. You just sign up. It's free to sign up. You sign up, you run the distance, and then if you want the buckle, you pay extra for the buckle. And it is a real belt buckle. I love this thing. And this is going to be my next tattoo. I got my first 100-mile belt buckle on my left calf. So I'm going to get this on my left shin in front of it. So whenever I walk up to anybody, they can look down on my shin and say, this guy's run across the entire state of Florida. And quick history lesson. I always wondered why belt buckles seem kind of dumb, but this goes back to the origination of 100-mile ultramarathons. It started as a horse race. I think it was called the Western States 100. And, if you went through this long trek on a horse, very cowboyish, your reward was a belt buckle. And so then somebody got the bright idea. Some really smart person got the bright idea, well, I wonder if I can run it. So now if you run 100 miles, you get a belt buckle. So, fun fact. Liv asked, what's next? So what's next for me this year is Ironman Chattanooga. It'll be my second Ironman. I did my first one in November of 2019 in Ironman, Florida. If you're unfamiliar with an Ironman, it's a triathlon that starts with a 2.4 mile swim, then a 112 mile bike ride, and then a marathon. All consecutive, no breaks. I did Ironman Florida in 11 hours. I had a lot of bike issues. I had a lot of flats. So, knock on wood, Ironman Chattanooga, I won't have bike issues, and maybe I can do like a 10 hour less finish. And then I'm already signed up for the Daytona 100 again this year, and I'm going to go back at it with my previous goal of 24 hours. I would like to run a 100-mile ultramarathon in 24 hours. And then if there's another sign up for the Route 40 Romp, I just checked today, there isn't yet. But if they decide to do another one, I'm going to do that again. And I'm going to try and do it in 29 hours like I tried to do it this time. And, I'm going to try some new things. I'm going to see if maybe my slow pace is too slow. Maybe I'm anchoring myself too early in the race. Maybe I should go a little quicker and then compensate for that slow nighttime race. Who knows? I'll play around with it. I'll see what I can do. I did see that there is another Cross Florida Ultramarathon, and it's 200 miles. And it's lots of trail runs. I'm not going to sign up for that yet because I need to be proficient with 100 miles before I think about signing up for 200. I'm sure hell or high water I could do it if I really tried, but it would be extremely difficult, and I think it would be hazardous to my health. Like, not being sarcastic, I think it would be very, very dangerous for my health if I tried a 200-mile ultramarathon right now. But that is definitely on the bucket list. So I'll answer some questions. The first question I got was earlier today. get it right. It was from Charity. Charity says, are there mantras you repeat for different reasons during your training and or races? What are they? I don't really have any mantras, but my training is kind of my meditation. It's my time to shut out everything in the outside world. We've got really, can't even talk. We've got really pretty trails that I run on, so it's really nice to just get out into nature, clear my head. If I'm going through tough times, the last few years I've been really big on mental health. And if there's a lot of things that I'm trying to work through, it's a really good time for me to reflect, to talk myself through troubles that I'm having, talk myself out of bad habits that I get into. Because if you don't know me personally, I'm diagnosed with pretty bad anxiety and OCD. So one of the things I do with OCD is, first of all, talking to someone about it. I'm just gonna, little time out here. Mental health is something that's very important and very near to my heart. So if you struggle with anything, one, you're not alone. Chances are there's a ton of people around you that struggle with the same thing you do, and two, talk to somebody about it. I have a very good therapist, and also have a very good psychologist, whichever one prescribes medication. There's better living through therapy and sometimes medication. So that being said, dealing with OCD is tough, and the first big step is being aware of it, and self-awareness is a really big thing, and that's one of the tools that I've learned to help me through. So first being self-aware, and then when I'm out on my runs, when I'm in my meditation, I look at what I'm doing and I recognize those patterns and I recognize those bad habits, and it's not crazy to talk to yourself. Like, I'll be in the middle of a long run and I'll start thinking about something that's really wearing me down, and I'll just tell myself, no, stop. It's my thing is, I have these conversations in my head that are probably never even going to happen, and I have to tell myself, one, that's not even an issue right now. Two, it's probably not going to be an issue, so stop dwelling on it, stop obsessing about it. So, and along with that, I can get over other issues that I'm dealing with just by thinking through it, and running is a really good way of clearing my head and getting out of those cycles and getting out into nature, just like closing out the world. So maybe that is a mantra, I don't know, but that's what I go through on my runs. And Charity's second question was, what are some of the accomplishments, moments, etc. you pull from your cookie jar to keep you going when you're struggling? And what Charity is talking about is this book that I got around New Year's, called Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. If you don't know about David Goggins, even if you're not into endurance training, I mean, David Goggins is a person that's been through just absolute shit in his life. And he is, I've never met him personally. I've read his book. I follow him on social media, but he is one of the mentally toughest people I could ever even imagine. And this book that he wrote, I didn't even make it through the introduction or the dedication before I was crying. I mean, granted, yes, I am a crier. Whatever. It's 2021. We cry. But everything in this book is just so heartfelt and tough and down to earth, and it's such a good book. Even if you're not into endurance training or endurance sports, there's so many lessons in this book to get your life in order and to really wrap your head around your life. So what Charity was talking about is the cookie jar. It's one of his challenges. If you have the book, it's challenge number 6. And to paraphrase, the cookie jar is a treat for yourself. Whenever you do really tough things, whenever you meet really tough goals, accomplish really hard things, make it through life experiences, things that are really tough, those are your cookies that you put away in that cookie jar for whenever you're going through something tougher. You get through little things in your life or tough things and accomplishments, and then later on in life you go through this big race like me. Charity's asking what I go through in my cookie jar on these races. Those cookies are what you reach down for in your cookie jar when you're having a tough time. Perfect example. Going through the middle of the night in this Route 40 romp, I was having a tough time. It was late. It was cold. I was tired. I wanted to quit. Everything's against you. But I dug down in that cookie jar and I grabbed that cookie that I made it through that 100-mile ultramarathon that I didn't think I was going to finish. Like, I knew in my heart I wasn't going to finish. I was defeated, completely defeated. And the only thing that kept me going is that I stood up and figured I'm just going to put one foot in front of the other until time runs out and just see what happens. That was the cookie that I grabbed out of my cookie jar for this race. I've been through that. I've been through some pretty hard life shit in the last few years. Things that I wouldn't ask on anybody else. I know if I can make it through those tough times and family life issues, I know if I can make it through that, I can make it through a 116-mile race. It's just, it's a physical distance. I can stumble for as long as I need to make it through that. So I grab that cookie out of the cookie jar. I've been through that. I can make it through this race. And I'm going to get back to, let's see. There was a question earlier from Juan. Let's see. I can't get back to it. The first question I got was earlier today. Juan. Okay, so I don't remember the exact words. I think Juan Pena, my friend that's in my Ocala Triathletes Club. Ocala Triathletes. another shout out. Um, he asked, I think he asked, what advice do I have to get him past mile 22? I think Juan's doing a marathon, um, Tomoka Marathon, I think, tomorrow. And I'll say the same thing. First, Juan, read this book. But until then, reach into your cookie jar. Think about. Yes! There you go, Juan. Any tips for tomorrow morning after mile 22? Reach into your cookie jar. Think about think about tough training runs that you've had up until now. Um, if it's been stupid hot outside and you don't want to do it, if it's in the morning and it's too cold and you don't want to run, um, if you had a really bad week at work and things are just gone to shit, think about that stuff. Reach into your cookie jar, pull out those cookies, pull out those little accomplishments that you've done until now, and think, all right, it's mile 22. There's 4 more to go. You know, how hard is it to do 4 miles? You know, you can make it those last 4 miles. And, you know, whether it's mile 22 or mile 100, it's all mental. Once you make it past the first half of a race, I mean, the first half is physical, but the second half is just getting across that finish line. So, you know, think about that. And let me see. I don't want to paraphrase again. I want to find the right quote. This is bad video, sorry. My favorite ultra runner, Dean Karnazes, and I've said this a bunch of times and I'll keep saying it. Run when you can, walk if you have to, crawl if you must, just never give up. Simple as that. So, you're going to make it across the finish line. You know that. I know that. I'm confident you're going to do that. You're an amazing runner. So, first of all, good luck tomorrow at Tomoka Juan. You're going to do awesome. But think about that after mile 22 when things are going to get tough. Things are going to get tough. So just think about that and you'll do good. Also, another great quote from Dean Karnazes is ultramarathons aren't hard, just don't stop. So think about that. Let's see. Questions. I don't think there were any other questions. So unless any more pop up, I just want to wrap up and say thank you to everybody that supported me in this race. It was a big undertaking. And one of my big hesitations before signing up for any of these ultra marathons is that it's not just me running stupid long races. It takes a lot of people to help because not a lot of companies and race directors have aid stops, so it takes a road crew. And you know, it's hard to be a road crew for that long because it's an incredibly long time. It's, you know, over 24 hours. So it takes, you know, that saying, like, it takes a village to raise a child. Well, it takes a village to support an ultra runner. And there were a lot of people, and you know, I'm pretty sure I covered everybody. And I did make a post, you know, after the race, everybody that came to all my stops, everybody that helped me through, everybody that made cool little crafty gifts for me. Um, Tony and Liv with the Shuggy Shack, Angie with the massages, um, the new people I met. It all made for an amazing experience, and I'm forever grateful, with all my heart for everybody that's helped me out. Um, it's not unnoticed and it's not forgotten. It's something that I think about every time I do one of these races, and um, maybe one of these days I'll be proficient enough where I can do it unaided, and I can, take my little dog stroller and fill it up with all my nutrition in my duffel bag and do it on my own. But until then, thank you so much to everybody that's helped me out. And I appreciate all of you, and I love all of you very much. Um, and so, with that, I don't have anything to cheers with because I drank it all. I'm getting a little emotional. But here's one last look at that belt buckle. I'll have that on my skin pretty soon. And onward and upward to bigger things. Bigger things and meeting my goals for the races that I've done so far. It's, I feel like I've been doing this forever, but this is really only my second ultra marathon, my second big ultra marathon. So I'm still learning a lot, and saying a lot. I'll probably run a 24-hour 100-mile race before I stop saying so much. I can't stop looking at this thing. But thank you, everybody. Thank you for all of your support, and thank you for being interested in this thing that I just do because I'm kind of crazy and need some way to get out all this stress and anxiety. So I'll talk to everybody later. Good luck tomorrow, Juan. I know you'll do awesome. Looking forward to seeing that 3-hour marathon finish. No, I'm not going to put that pressure on you. You're going to do great. Thank you for everything, everybody, and I'll talk to you later.